Millionaire returns home early and discovers an incredible, life-changing surprise. Jake Thompson gripped the steering wheel of his sleek black sports car, the sun glinting off its polished surface. He was back in Crestview, the small Midwestern town that had cradled his childhood dreams, but felt like a distant memory. His clean-cut designer clothes felt alien amidst the flannel shirts and worn jeans of his old neighborhood. He was no longer just Jake. He was a millionaire on a mission, returning with the heavy weight of his mother's declining health on his shoulders. As he drove through the familiar streets, memories flooded over him like summer rain. The laughter of children playing in the park, the scent of fresh apple pie wafting from Mrs. Parker's bakery, the rustle of leaves in the fall, all of it tugged at his heart. Yet, an ache followed him. The faces around him told a story of hard work, sacrifice, and resilience. Jake felt their eyes linger on his luxury car, some judging, others merely curious, their lives still rooted in the town he had left behind. He settled into his childhood home, just as he remembered, with the cracked floorboards and faded photographs. Jake's pulse quickened as he hugged his mother. Her frail body felt like a shadow of the vibrant woman he once knew. Moments later, he ran into Emily, his childhood friend. The fire in her eyes was unmistakable as she revealed that the local orphanage was facing closure due to severe funding cuts. "Jake, they need us. Those kids. They have no one else," she pleaded, passion wrapping around her words, reminding him of the countless afternoons spent playing there. When Jake returned to talk to his older brother, Tom, tensions flared. "You really think your money can solve everything?" Tom shot back, his voice laced with resentment. "You left us for a life of luxury and forgot where you came from." It hurt more than he'd like to admit. Reminders of his choices slicing deeper than any blade. Determined, Jake made his way to the orphanage, and he was overwhelmed by the infectious laughter of the children inside, their joy a balm to his heart. Emily confided in him about the dire situation. "Many will be lost without support." Her eyes filled with unshed tears, a fire igniting within Jake's chest. Inspired, he launched a glitzy fundraiser, believing that all it took was his wealth to save the day. But the event was a disaster. Doubts swirled around him like autumn leaves. They didn't see the millionaire, they saw the outsider. Rather than gratitude, he felt their skepticism, their whispers about his sincerity echoing in his ears. "He's just trying to buy our trust," they said. It stung more than he'd thought possible. In a moment of vulnerability, Emily confronted him. "You're not hearing us, Jake. It's not about throwing money at it. You need to step into our shoes, understand what they're going through." Her words rattled him. They stirred a vulnerability he had locked away tight. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In that moment, Jake's heart cracked open. Money wasn't a solution. Real transformation came from understanding, from shared experiences. He began engaging with the community genuinely, working alongside Emily and slowly repairing things with Tom. Days turned into weeks of rekindling old bonds, learning about the hardships of his neighbors. The day of the community revival at the orphanage arrived. As laughter echoed around the playground, hope hung thick in the air. Yet, looming clouds gathered on the horizon, a storm of doubt breaking over Jake's heart. Standing among the children, a question burned. Could he truly bridge the gap between his wealth and their needs before it was too late? The community revival at the orphanage unfolded like a colorful festival, bustling with laughter and excited chatter. Balloons danced in the warm breeze, their vibrant colors a stark contrast to the gray clouds gathering above. Jake struggled to shake his unease, a heavy knot twisted in his stomach. He wanted to believe in the good, that his efforts would bring meaningful change, but doubt whispered insidiously in his ear. "Hey, Jake!" Emily called, her voice slicing through the cacophony. She approached him with a bright smile, a plate of homemade cookies in her hands. It reminded him of simpler times, a memory that sparked warmth in his chest. "Want one? Mrs. Parker baked these just for today." He took a cookie, the sweetness momentarily distracting him. "Thanks, but—" He hesitated, glancing at the colorful chaos encircling them. "Will this really make a difference?" Emily's expression softened, her eyes glimmering with understanding. "It's a start. Just being here, celebrating with the kids, that means so much. They need hope, not just money. Together we can build that." As the celebration unfolded, Jake joined in the games, his laughter mingling with the children's as he tossed a beach ball back and forth. It reminded him of his childhood, times when simple joys mattered. Yet with every moment of joy, the tension in his chest only grew stronger as he faced the reality encapsulated in each child's bright smile. These kids deserved stability, real support, not the fleeting thrills of a party. In the midst of playing, Jake overheard snippets of conversation about the orphanage's looming fate. "If we can't secure funding soon—" One mother's voice trailed off, her eyes downcast, the weight of worry hanging heavy in the air. The laughter around him began to fade, replaced by his hollow understanding of the struggles they faced daily. Suddenly, he felt an overwhelming urge to do something beyond charity, something that would resonate deep within the hearts of the people he had once called family. "Emily," he said, catching her attention, "let's do more than just this event. I want to create something lasting. A community board, workshops that teach skills, opportunities for these kids. A safety net, you know." Emily's brow furrowed thoughtfully. "That could work. But it will take time. More than a check. It's about connections. Building trust again. This town has seen people come and go, Jake. You'll need to prove you really care." Jake nodded, determination glinting in his eyes. This time it wasn't about flaunting wealth. It was about investing in lives, in futures. He needed to roll up his sleeves, more than just from a distance. As they continued to form plans, the skies darkened ominously. But instead of retreating, Jake felt a spark of resolve. With Emily by his side, perhaps they could turn the tide in their favor. He took a deep breath, grounding himself in purpose. "Let's bring everyone together next week. Use the community center. We'll brainstorm ideas, get input from everyone," he declared, fueled by passion. Excitement coursed through him. The revival ended with glowing smiles and hopeful hearts, but Jake couldn't shake the unease hovering outside the joy of that day. He stepped away from the chaos for a moment, looking toward the horizon. In the distance, storm clouds brewed, a reminder that challenges were heading their way. He felt a presence beside him and turned to find Tom standing there, arms folded, a skeptical look in his eyes. "You really think you can pull this off?" his brother asked, eyebrow raised. "Are you sure you're ready for what it takes?" In that moment, Jake realized the emotional storm within him was just beginning. "I have to try," he replied firmly, the words igniting a fire of courage within. They stood there, brothers, on the brink of a new chapter, both uncertain but ready to embrace what was to come. Would they have the strength to face the trials ahead, or would the past tug them back into division? The week before the community meeting unfolded like a detailed blueprint of anxiety and excitement. Jake pored over plans, sketching ideas of rooms turned into workshops, walls decorated with art made by the children, and spaces for the community to gather. He cut out articles about successful revitalizations, hoping to draw inspiration from those who had walked this path before him. Emily became his sounding board, her laughter and insights bringing life to Jake's vision. They spent late nights working side by side, fueled by a mix of determination and caffeine. Yet, as the days slipped by, Jake felt an undercurrent of apprehension. What if it all fell flat? What if he couldn't deliver? As the fateful Friday arrived, gray skies loomed over the town, mirroring Jake's worries. He stood in front of the community center, the familiar paint now chipped and faded, a shadow of its former self. It served as a reminder of a town that had lost its heartbeat, a place that needed more than just a plan. It needed a miracle. Around 7, the doors creaked open, revealing a handful of community members, some faces familiar, some new. They shuffled in, hopeful, yet wary. The scent of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, invoking a sense of warmth amidst the uncertainty. Jake's pulse quickened as he took a moment to gather himself, though his hands trembled slightly. "Thank you all for coming," he began, surprised by how steady his voice sounded. "I know it's been a rough time for many of us, but I believe we can change things. We can build something that lasts." As he spoke, he watched their faces closely, searching for signs of hope or dismissal. Emily stood by the boards he had prepared, her encouragement cheering him on. One by one, the community shared their thoughts, their dreams. Ideas flowed like a rushing river. Arts and crafts classes, mentorship programs, community gardening. The room buzzed with newfound energy, a spark igniting in each heart present. Yet, amidst the vibrant discussions, Jake still sensed an old skepticism hanging around like a stubborn shadow. As they broke into smaller groups, Tom walked in, joining the gathering with a seriousness in his demeanor. He glanced around, taking in the passionate voices, the animated gestures. There was a flicker of pride flashing through his skeptical gaze. "Pretty lively, huh?" he mused, leaning near Jake. "Looks like you've got something going here." Jake attempted a smile, though the knot in his stomach tightened. "Yeah, but I'm not sure it's enough." A lady named Claire stood up, her voice cutting through the chatter. "We've been waiting for someone to see us, to care enough to listen," she said, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "This isn't just about the orphanage. It's about rebuilding our community. We're in this together, right?" The murmurs of agreement that followed her statement sent chills through Jake. Maybe they were ready to fight for each other, to restore something precious they had almost forgotten. But as the evening pressed onward, a low rumble echoed from the outside. The sky opened up, rain pouring relentlessly. Concern flickered across the faces surrounding him. Would this storm derail their hopes? Just then, a knock sounded on the weather-worn doors, cutting through the din. All heads turned, and Jake felt a wave of curiosity ripple through the crowd. He opened the door, the cold air hitting him squarely in the chest. There, drenched but standing firm, was a figure he never expected to see. "Mom?" The single word slipped from his lips, thick with confusion and disbelief. What was she doing here, and why now, in this moment of awakening? The turmoil within him reached a boiling point as he stared into her eyes, realizing that this encounter had the potential to change everything. Would it be a chance for reconciliation, or would it open wounds from the past that couldn't be healed? Jake took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his decisions pressing closer. What surprises awaited him under this unbroken storm? "Mom." Jake stumbled over the word, his voice barely breaking the silence. The community members, anticipating a moment of significance, held their breath as his reality collided with this unexpected visitor from his past. There was a moment where the world stood still. Her face was a mix of fatigue and determination, the rainwater coursing down like the years they had lost. Was this the mother he had yearned for, or the ghost of the woman he had resented? She stepped inside, shaking off droplets like a dog emerging from the rain. "I had to come," she said, her voice rough yet tinged with warmth. "I heard about what you're doing. It reminded me of what we once dreamed." Jake's heart raced. He felt a surge of emotions, the joy of seeing her mixed with the bitterness of old wounds. "Why now?" he asked, keeping his tone even. "After all this time?" As she opened her mouth to respond, Emily took a tentative step forward, I'm so glad you're here, she said, breaking the tension. We were just discussing how to bring this community back together. Claire, still holding on to her earlier passion, chimed in. Maybe you can help. We need all the hands we can get. For a moment, the crowd was alive with possibilities. Yet Jake's anger simmered just under the surface. You think it's that easy? He shot back, frustration spilling over. You walked away. You didn't care. Her eyes darkened, but rather than lash out, she held his gaze, not the wistful expression he'd come to expect. I know I hurt you, Jake, but I'm here now. I want to make it right. The room, filled with whispers of hope and clinks of cups, faded into the background. What did this mean for him? Was he really willing to tear down the walls he had built all those years ago? The murmurs followed the ebb and flow of the rain outside. Tom leaned closer, his voice low. You know, I was just like you once, left behind, angry. But sometimes forgiveness can unearth paths you never thought existed. Jake stood still, contemplating Tom's words. The gathering around him, these neighbors and friends, were so eager to move forward. But could he really let go of the past? She's right about the community, he finally murmured, struggling to maintain focus. We need to do this together. An encouraging wave of agreement passed through the crowd, but Jake could still feel the tension coiling within him. He turned back to his mother, searching for any sign that she was truly committed. Why should I trust you? He pressed, his voice sharp. After everything? Because I've spent years regretting my choices, she replied, her voice fierce but trembling at the edges. I see how hard you're fighting for what matters. I want to be a part of it, if you'll let me. The storm outside echoed the tumult in Jake's chest. Could he really open up to her, even when the scars felt fresh? Just as he was about to respond, the lights flickered overhead, and one by one, the room fell into darkness. Gasps erupted as the only light came from flashes of lightning outside. Is everyone okay? Emily shouted into the dark, her voice laced with both authority and concern. Jake felt his heartbeat quicken as he focused on the silhouettes around him. Would this be a turning point for all of them? Or would the darkness around them mirror their own uncertainties? With the air thick with tension, he realized the real storm wasn't just outside. It had arrived in his heart. Let's figure this out, he said, his voice steady despite the chaos outside. If we're going to make this work, we need to confront our past together. And just like that, amidst the rain and darkness, a flicker of hope ignited within him. Could this gathering be not only about reviving a community, but healing his own family too? The real challenge awaited them in the shadows. The darkness enveloped them, but the tension was palpable. Jake could feel the energy of the crowd shifting around him. Some were whispering, others fidgeting nervously. He took a deep breath, attempting to center himself amidst the chaos of emotions roiling inside. Okay, listen, he said, his voice more measured now. Let's not panic. We've been through worse, right? It's just a blackout. He forced a smile, trying to ease the collective anxiety. But even as he spoke, Jake felt like they were standing on the edge of something deep and murky, something that was about to pull them under. His mother stood close, the shadows masking the full expression on her face. Yet the faint glimmer of her eyes held his attention. She seemed so vulnerable in that moment, a stark contrast to the fierce woman he had seen moments before. Then a loud crash of thunder shook the room. The lights flickered back to life just in time for Jake to see his mother's face, raw and transparent. It unleashed a wave of emotions that poured out of him before he could hold them back. "You left me!" he shouted, voice trembling not with anger but with something deeper, filled with old pain. "You left us, without a word." The room fell silent. Even Emily and Claire paused, absorbing the rising tension. Claire took a step forward, her voice soft. "Jake, maybe we should—" "No," he interrupted, forcing himself to meet his mother's eyes. "This is between us." His heart pounded like a war drum, each beat like a reminder of the loneliness and abandonment he had faced. His mother's gaze searched the crowd, catching the intense empathy reflected in their faces. "I know," she said, her voice wavering. "And it's the one thing I can't change. But I'm not asking for your forgiveness, not yet. I just want a chance to prove I can be here. For you. For us." Jake felt his resolve waver as her words settled like soft rain on parched soil. Was he really ready to dismantle the walls he had forged out of hurt? His throat tightened as he glanced at the community gathered around them. They were waiting. Not just for him, but for all of them to confront their own storms. Tom spoke again, cutting through the stillness. "In every community," he began, "there's a moment where we need each other the most. We've lost so much already. It doesn't have to be done alone. We all carry scars." His eyes swept the crowd, and Jake could feel the truth of those words stir within him. A flash of lightning illuminated his mother's face, revealing tears shimmering in her eyes. She looked older and smaller than he remembered, and suddenly, the anger felt like a jagged piece of glass in his heart. "Jake, please," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want to be a part of your life again." And just like that, the storm inside him roared as loud as the one outside. He wanted to push her away, angry that she could be so close after being so far. But a part of him craved that connection, the chance to rewrite their ending. "Maybe," he murmured, hesitating, "maybe we could start with small steps." Relief flooded her expression, but uncertainty painted his. It was a fragile beginning, but in the depths of his heart, he sensed that something was changing. Maybe he could forgive. Maybe he could heal. Suddenly a loud crash broke the moment. Peering out of a window, the community's gaze turned toward an unexpected sight. The old oak tree had fallen, skirting dangerously close to the gathering's main structure. "Get everyone back!" Emily shouted, her voice rising above the panic. "We need to move!" Jake felt adrenaline rush through him, pushing him forward. "Help me!" he yelled, racing toward the door as chaos erupted. Questions flooded into his mind. What would happen next? Could they really band together and confront their fears, both old and new? And as he burst into the storm outside, Jake realized this moment could reshape everything, both for the community and his own fractured family. But would they be brave enough to weather it together? The rain poured down like 1,000 hammers against the pavement, drowning out the cries and chaos that erupted around them. Jake fought against the rushing crowd, the urgency of Emily's voice spurring him onward. Adrenaline surged through him like lightning, mixing with a tumult of emotions, anger, fear, and a flicker of hope. "Jake! Over here!" Claire's shout cut through the noise, drawing him to the side of the main structure. She stood, wide-eyed and drenched, pointing toward the wreckage of the oak tree. It had cracked and splintered, creating a heavy barrier that blocked the main entrance to the community center. "We have to move it now!" "Right." He nodded, trying to shake off the heaviness that lingered like a shadow. He joined Claire and a few others from the crowd, their determination solidifying into a palpable force. They pushed against the fallen trunk, the effort fierce but the weight daunting. A sudden gust of wind whipped around them, laden with rain and bitterness. Jake's muscles screamed as they struggled to budge the tree. Thoughts of his mother and the fragile thread of reconciliation hung in the air, pushing him harder, deeper. They managed to shift the tree just enough to create a narrow opening. "Good. Go," Claire urged, her voice a mix of resolve and desperation. Jake ducked beneath the debris and scrambled through. He paused just outside, scanning the stormy horizon. He could see lights flickering in the nearby houses, their warmth a stark contrast to the turmoil surrounding them. "Anyone injured?" he shouted, trying to regain control amid the chaos. "Not yet," Tom answered, his face set with determination. "But if we don't act quickly, that tree's not the only thing that could fall apart." A collective breath passed through the gathering, unspoken fears swirling as they assessed the damage. But even in the uncertainty, Jake felt a spark ignite within him. This moment, messy and chaotic, was theirs, and each one of them had a role to play. He turned back to the community center, now shadowed by the fierce clouds swirling overhead. His mother's figure appeared at the entrance, still rooted in place. Her vulnerability from earlier flickered behind concern, one that reflected their shared history and the work yet ahead. "Mom," Jake called out. She looked up, locking eyes with him. It was an unspoken connection, filled with history, recognition, and uncertainty. He took a step away from the group, drawn like a moth to a flame. "You don't have to do this alone," he shouted against the wind, his voice stronger now, brimming with the sincerity of a son filled with confusion, but also a yearning for connection. "I can be part of your life, but you have to let me in." Her voice strained against the elements, filled with conviction. "We both have to. We can't afford to hide any longer." A jagged bolt of lightning illuminated the stormy sky, and in that flash, Jake made a choice. It was time. Time to face not just the community, but also their past, the abandonment, the hurt, the hopes and dreams they still carried. "Everyone!" He turned back to the crowd. "We can't let the storm pull us apart. We're stronger together. Help me save the center." With a newfound fierceness, he gestured for everyone to rally behind him, and one by one, they joined his call to action. The will of the community surged. It felt like the pulse of life returning to something that had once withered in darkness. As they rushed toward the main structure to assess how they could secure it, Jake saw the glimmer of hope reflected in his mother's eyes. Together, amidst the chaos, they could finally begin to rebuild. A family, a community, a new beginning. But in that moment of unity, a chilling scream shattered the air. Someone had spotted movement from within the darkened building, and just like that, Jake's heart dropped. What lurked behind those doors could change everything once again. Jake's pulse raced as he froze, the crowd around him stilling in a shared moment of confusion and anticipation. The storm roared on, but all he could hear was the heavy thud of his heart in his ears. A murmur spread like wildfire, eyes darting toward the entrance of the community center where shadows danced ominously. "Did you see that?" someone whispered, their voice tinged with fear. "I think it was a—" Another began, but the words dissolved into another anguished scream that sliced through the air, this time rawer, more desperate. Panic threatened to rip through the group, but Jake couldn't afford to let that happen. Not now, not after they had gathered under the threat of the storm. He felt a surge of determination. "Everyone listen!" His voice cut through the rising tide of fear. "We can't just stand here. We have to see what's happening." Claire grabbed his arm. "Jake, wait. It could be dangerous." "I can't just ignore it. If someone needs help." His words faded, but he knew what he had to do. With a deep breath, he stepped forward, squinting into the darkened entrance, barely visible through the curtain of rain. "Mom, stay back!" he shouted over his shoulder, but her eyes were locked onto his, filled with a mix of pride and fear. He pressed on, urging his legs to move despite the squelching mud beneath his feet. The others hesitated for a moment longer. Sheer disbelief painted across their faces. But then a collective resolve surged, and they followed him. Jake felt their energy swell, fear trading places with fragile bravery as they huddled together, forming a makeshift front against the howling storm. As they stepped closer to the entrance, the air felt thick and electric. No more shouting, only the sound of rain tapping against skin and a mingled breath of anxious anticipation. Jake reached out, pushing against the door. It creaked open, a reluctant participant to the chaos outside. The darkness inside seemed to swallow them whole as they stepped across the threshold, but shadows soon revealed familiar outlines within. The gymnasium, once a beacon of community, now drenched in darkness, the floor littered with scattered debris. "Anyone in here?" Jake called, his voice echoing against the walls. Silence stretched, filling the space with a heavy absence. Just as hope began to flicker around the edges, light flickered from behind the old stage curtains. "What was that?" Tom whispered. "Come on, let's check it out," Jake said, his instincts pushing him forward despite the doubt coiling in his stomach. They moved closer and closer to the stage, where the curtains trembled as if something was trapped behind them. Just as Jake reached to draw them back, a voice broke through the air, a voice he recognized instantly. His heart staggered, hope mixing with a haunting sense of dread. "Help, please." The plea snagged in his throat. It was Emily. For an instant, the world around him faded, and all that existed was the urgent pull of her cry. He grabbed the curtain, yanking it aside, and gasped. There she was, huddled together with two small figures, drenched and shivering in the damp, dim light. "Jake!" she gasped, relief flooding her face. "I thought we were trapped." Jake rushed forward, eyes darting over their fragile forms. "What happened? Are you okay?" But she wasn't just there to reassure him. In her eyes, he saw an urgency that broke his heart. "We need to get them out of here," she started, her voice barely above a whisper. They were alive. But did they have time? As Jake gathered them close, a hollow thud echoed behind him, a heavy reminder that while they were pulling together, danger loomed closer than he had ever imagined. "Stay together," he urged, leading the way back, but as they stepped into the crowd outside, something deep inside felt ominously wrong. The wind howled even louder now, not just with the storm, but with a foreboding that swept through the air. Something more than just the weather had shifted, and Jake had the sinking feeling that they weren't out of danger yet. What did the storm really hide? And were their efforts futile just as they began to rebuild? Jake could feel the weight of the crowd pressing in around him as they huddled close, forming an anxious circle to shield Emily and the little ones. The storm was relentless, and with every gust of wind, a sense of urgency clawed at Jake's insides. He forced his focus on Emily's face, her familiarity a fragile anchor amidst the chaos. "Are they hurt?" he asked, kneeling to check the two small figures. They were shaking but otherwise seemed okay. A comforting sight flickered in his mind, pushing aside the fear that cast its long shadow. "No, just scared," Emily replied, brushing the wet strands of hair from her forehead. "But there's more to it. The others?" "The others?" Jake pressed, his heart sinking. "What do you mean?" Before Emily could answer, another deep thud echoed, this time louder, reverberating through the gymnasium walls. The air felt charged. Each droplet of rain that pelted outside matched the frantic rhythm of his heart. Voices in the crowd began to murmur, and he could see their faces twist with fear, uncertainty bubbling to the surface. "Jake!" Claire called out, her eyes wide with worry. "What's going on? What do we do?" "Stay calm, everyone!" Jake shouted, his voice rising above the remnants of chaos. "Emily is here. We'll figure this out together." He turned back to Emily, taking a breath. "What about the others? Are they safe too?" She shook her head slowly, her gaze drifting toward the shadows that swirled in the corners of the gym. "I don't know. They were trying to escape when I got separated." Her voice caught, and Jake felt the despair in her tone. A soft whimper broke through the tension, drawing his attention. The smaller child, a girl with wide blue eyes, clutched Emily's side. "I want to go home," she whispered, her tiny voice trembling. It pierced through the thick air like a cry for salvation. Jake knelt beside her, forcing a small smile. "We will, I promise. But first, we need to make sure everyone is safe. Can you be brave for me?" The girl nodded, albeit weakly. He turned back to Emily. "Do you know where the others might be?" he asked again. Time was slipping through his fingers like sand. Emily looked hesitant, glancing back toward the stage and the dark corridor behind it. I heard them. I think they might be trapped. Or hiding. The thud echoed again, a reminder of the threat lurking just outside their haven. Then let's go, Jake commanded, rising to his feet. We can't leave anyone behind. The crowd shifted nervously, but he could feel their determination growing. Jake, no, Claire said, panic creeping into her voice. We can't risk it. What if... No what ifs, he shot back, feeling frustration flare. We stick together. People are depending on us. Taking Emily's hand, he felt even more grounded. You're with me. Let's get them out, he said, looking into her eyes, seeking unwavering resolve. With a nod, they moved forward together, stepping past the curtain that separated light from pessimism. The shadows loomed ahead, but the first step was always the hardest. As they crept deeper into the darkened space, Jake's heart thundered. Hope and dread collided, each step a wavering promise of survival. The thud came again, closer now, a warning that they were not alone in the shadows. Just then, a figure emerged, silhouetted against the dim glow of the emergency lights. Help, please, Jake's breath hitched as he recognized the voice. It was Tom. Tom! Jake called out, fear and relief warring within him. What happened? But before Tom could respond, another violent bang reverberated through the gym. The weight of it seemed to crush every ounce of hope. An attack? An accident? Jake couldn't tell. And reality sank in as he realized that this storm might just be the beginning. What if their efforts to save the others only put them all in more danger? Get back! He shouted toward Tom, but the shadows shifted again, hungry for chaos. With every heartbeat, Jake felt the looming question take root. Would their resilience be enough, or had the storm unleashed something far more perilous? The shadows seemed to swallow Tom as he rushed toward Jake. His eyes were wild, frantic with fear. They're stuck. The doors won't budge and the lights went out. The next rumble shook the ground, cutting him off. Everyone froze, holding their breath as dread filled the air. Stay close, Tom, Jake instructed, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He grabbed Emily's hand with one of his own, while keeping Tom close with the other. We need to get to the storage room. If we can get it open, we'll have a way out. Wait, Claire shouted from behind. What if there's something in there? We can't just... Do you have a better idea? Jake asked, not meaning to sound harsh, but the urgency was palpable. He turned back to Tom. Can you lead us there? Tom nodded, fear flickering in his eyes, but determination began to take its place. This way. He moved quickly, weaving past broken chairs and toppled tables, the trembling crew following closely behind. With every step, Jake could feel the storm's rage outside escalating. It was a beast, clawing at their sanctuary. The gym's dim emergency lights flickered overhead, mocking their fragile sense of safety. As they reached the storage room door, Tom pushed against it, but it wouldn't budge. Come on, you can do it, Emily encouraged, breathing heavily. I can't, Tom cried, panic rising in his voice again. It's jammed. Jake stepped up beside him. We'll all push together. On 3. He could feel the girls clutching his sides, their anxiety mounting. 1, 2, 3. They pushed with all their might, the strain visible on every face, until finally, with a creak and a groan, the door inched open. Inside was a patch of darkness and debris, but it was a sanctuary nonetheless. Jake rushed in, scanning the contents, hoping for anything that could aid their escape. Is everyone in? He called. The little ones were shivering behind Emily, her hand gripping tightly onto their shoulders. Tom hesitated, glancing back into the gym, where shadows danced around the edges. What if it's worse in here? He whispered. We can't stay out there, Jake insisted. Trust me. With a final glance at the chaotic world outside, Tom stepped through the door. The group huddled inside, shadows thrown against the wall by the flickering emergency lights. Suddenly, a loud crash shattered the moment, as something heavy collided with the outer wall of the gym. The reverberation knocked them off balance. Jake felt a surge of panic. How much longer could they hold out? "Guys, we need to find something to block the door," he urged, dread clawing at him from the inside out. "Anything we can use." The children began to cry softly, and his heart broke a little more as he turned back to Emily. "We can't let them see us panic," he said quietly, trying to muster the strength he needed. As they all scanned the dim room, searching nervously through the clutter, the echo of each crash outside reminded them that time was running out. What if this is the end? One of the little girls whimpered, her voice barely above a whisper. "No, we're not giving up," Jake said, fire igniting within him. "We fight. We protect. That's what we do." But deep down, a new worry settled in. What awaited them just beyond that door? Would they find the storm's wrath or something far worse? And with each crash that split the air, Jake felt the shadows inch closer, the darkness pressing in on them. He steeled himself, the weight of the moment pressing heavily down. "Are we ready, Jake?" Emily asked, her voice a whisper filled with both fear and resolve. Jake took a deep breath, feeling the moment of truth fast approach. "No matter what happens next," he said softly, "we face it together." But would their resolve be enough to weather the storm, or would the night's horrors break their fragile unity? With nervous anticipation, everyone braced themselves against the decision that lay ahead. In that dim storage room, illuminated only by flickering lights and trembling shadows, Jake felt the weight of their collective breaths, their fears rising and falling like the tide. The sounds of the storm outside merged with the pounding of his heart, but amidst the chaos, he found a fierce determination swelling within him. "First, let's secure the door," he directed, rallying Tom, Emily, and the two children as they searched through the clutter. Desperate hands rummaged through stacks of forgotten supplies, old chairs, cardboard boxes, anything that could be moved. "Grab that!" Jake shouted, pointing to a heavy wooden crate. They pushed it into place, barricading the door. The echoes of the storm grew louder, each crash against the walls vibrating through the air, urging them onward. The rain streamed down in torrents outside, hiding what dangers lurked just beyond their fragile sanctuary. As the last box clicked into place, the room fell still, a moment suspended in filtering light, thick with tension. "Now what?" Tom asked, panting slightly as he wiped the sweat from his forehead, eyes shifting toward the door with dread. "We stay put," Jake said firmly. "We hold our ground until the storm passes. They'll know we're here." "Here?" One little girl whimpered, her eyes wide with fear. "But what if—" "No buts," Emily interjected, kneeling down to meet the girl's frightened gaze. "We're together, and that makes us strong. Remember what Jake said? We face it together." Reassuring nods spread slowly around the room. The children snuggled closer to Emily, their little bodies finding solace in her warmth. And, for the first time that night, Jake felt that the storm might not consume them after all, but outside, the forces of nature churned with angry determination. The storm was relentless, howling like a wild animal, announcing its claim over the town. A hollow thud rattled the door, and for a fleeting moment, Jake feared the storm might shatter their fragile haven. "Stick together!" he shouted, voice steady and proud as he glanced at the weary faces of his friends and family. "Remember our dreams, what we're fighting for. We won't let fear control us." A low murmur of agreement swept through the room, an echo bouncing off the walls, gradually reinforcing their courage. "Jake, we can't just sit here forever. We need to find a way to contact the outside," Tom said, peering nervously at the remaining light sources. "Of course," Jake agreed, rallying the group. "We'll figure this out step by step." He led the way to the back of the room, searching for windows. Every step felt like a hesitant negotiation with the storm outside. At last, they found a small, grimy window partially obscured by boxes. Jake wiped away the grime and squinted outside. There was no sight of neighbors, no evidence of life, just swirling sheets of rain and the roar of thunder. A sense of dread pooled in his stomach, but he knew they had to stay vigilant. Suddenly, a blinding light shot across the gloom. Headlights splashed through the pouring rain. "Someone's out there!" Jake exclaimed, feeling a surge of hope. "Lend me a hand," he instructed. Emily and Tom scrambled to help, pushing boxes aside to make space by the window. Jake shouted, "Hey! We need help!" He pounded his fists against the frame, but his voice was lost in the roar of the storm, swallowed by the chaos outside. "Try the door," Emily interjected. "Maybe they need to come in." She scrambled back to the front of the room, heart racing. They'd built a barricade. Could they move it quickly enough? With adrenaline pumping, Jake and Tom rushed to help Emily shift the crates. "There's people outside," Jake yelled, panic and urgency surging as he pushed against the rain-beaten door. With one final heave, they opened it, and a gust of wind swept through, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and possibility. A figure burst through the door, soaking wet and shaking. "Jake!" Emily cried, and they all turned to see a familiar face. It was his mother, her expression a storm of relief and determination. "I couldn't stay away. I had to come," she said. "I heard the storm was worse than we thought." She looked at the kids, quick concern flashing through her eyes. "Are you all okay?" "More or less," Jake replied cautiously, unsure how to process what her return meant. Suddenly, the chaos of the storm and the chaos of their lives collided in a single moment. His heart raced as realization washed over him. She had chosen to come back, to support them in their time of need. Emily stepped forward. "We need to keep moving," she urged, glancing outside. "We have to find others." "Right," Jake agreed, feeling the weight of responsibility settle deeper into his bones. "But we won't leave anyone behind." With renewed purpose, they stepped back out into the torrential night, a united front braving the storm together. The path ahead felt daunting, but with Tom by his side, Emily holding the children close, and even his mother stepping up, he knew they would not face the tempest alone. The storm raged on, relentless and fierce. But as they emerged into the darkness, Jake couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope within, a tiny ember lighting the way even in the darkest of nights. "Let's find everyone," he urged, his voice laced with courage. "Together." And as they forged through the storm, he understood the power of family, community, and the unyielding strength born from their struggles. This was just the beginning of a new chapter, one where hope and healing walked hand in hand. As they ventured forth, confronting the storm's fury, Jake finally realized one undeniable truth. Love, determination, and unity could withstand even the harshest tempest. Now, my friends, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive stories that could inspire all of us. Don't wait not even one more second to share this powerful transformation with at least 5 friends who need to feel this hope. And if you enjoyed our journey today, leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show you care. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. We can't wait to hear from you.